Frank Layden, former head coach of the Utah Jazz. Thank you so much for being part of 3 Questions.
Well, it's my pleasure, Bob. I've been waiting all these years for this chance.
All these years,
yes,
have you?
Yes. You must have run out of people.
No, after you, we will have run out of people. You became the head coach of the Utah Jazz just in that transition from New Orleans to Utah. And back in those days, the organization really struggled both on the court and off the court financially. I mean, you did have Pistol Pete Maravich, and you had folks like Adrian Dantley and some of those big-name players. But what was it that finally turned the franchise around to become what it is today?
Well, I think, first of all, there's no bad cities. There was nothing wrong with New Orleans. There's only bad teams, and we were a bad team. And it takes time, and it takes patience to get decent, to become competitive. Remember that we had been in New Orleans. I wasn't with them at the time, but I think they were there 5 or 6 years, and they never made the playoffs. And you have to give the people something to build on, to think about. That do we have a future? I grew up in Brooklyn, where our battle cry every year in and year out, was wait till next year. You know, we've got young people. We'd make all sorts of excuses to get better. So I think what happens here, we happen to come across, first of all, you mentioned Adrian Dantley. He was a very important cog because he was a real player. The people here in Utah never got to see Pistol Pete because he was hurt when he came here, and he was damaged. But let me tell you about Pistol. As good as he was, and he was a guy who one year led the league in scoring, assists, and at the same time. But, you know, he could put people in other people's places. But when you lose alone. After a while, people get tired of watching you. We played in the Superdome too, which was this massive football field, and you know, you could have 20,000 people. It looked empty. And so anyway, but Pete was injured when he came here, but we picked up Adrian Dantley, and he was very productive. But I think along the way, we started to build a team gradually. We all know about Stockton and Malone, but we have to think about the Ricky Greens, the Bobby Hansons, the Thurl Baileys, the Mark Eatons. It was a matter of building a team that wasn't necessarily superstars or any stars, or any players anyone really heard of. Probably the most important player at that time was the acquisition of Ricky Green. Ricky Green had been in the minor leagues for several years, and he had been a good player in the minor leagues. He'd get his chance up in the big leagues. They say he couldn't shoot, and maybe that was true. I think what happens, he had to know when to shoot, and he started to learn that in our system. But he could bring the ball up the court, and he could distribute it. He was a good defensive player, and he was a team player, and he was a good guy. And that was one of the things I thought was very important in building a team, at any level, by the way. Well, high school, college thing is have good guys on your team, because it's a long year, and you might as well have good people. And I can win together, we can lose together, but we got to do it together.
Yeah. In those early days, it was really quite difficult. I mean, you had 2 co-owners of the team. You were playing in the Salt Palace Arena. I remember those days. I mean, how tough was it, really? Well,
the arena itself was not up to major league standards. It was okay, and it was fun there.
And it was better than the Superdome.
It was better than the Superdome, and there was a closeness. You know, I always used to say, you know, it was funny, and we'd have so few people. Somebody would yell across, "Hey, can I get a hot dog over here?" They'd yell across the court. You know, it was, and the people got to know each other. Don't forget, in those days, we had a band. We had a little symphony or a group that played together. We had a booster club, which was loyal. They were wonderful. They used to remember all the players' birthdays, and they made the players feel good. They took the players home with them, almost like in college. You know, they took them to have dinner at their homes and got to know them. And we started to develop a very good atmosphere. So in a way, the Salt Palace played a role in developing that family feeling that we had. But we had a real small locker room. We didn't have a real good training room. And finally, the commissioner told us, this isn't going to go on. You guys are going to have to find another place to play. And we did.
I remember when John Stockton was drafted out of college. I happened to be in Spokane, Washington at the time, and I remember the ESPN commentators saying, John Stockton gets picked from Gonzaga University in Spokane, Washington, going to the Utah Jazz. Now, at that time, nobody knew who John Stockton was.
A lot of people didn't know him. You know, to his credit, you know, it was a lower level than you know, a Division I. I think they were Division I, but they still were a lower level of it, and a lot of people didn't know about him. The most famous person that ever graduated from Spokane, from Gonzaga, prior to John was Bing Crosby.
That's right.
And they had a statue of him in the campus.
They do.
But you know, we had you know, Coach McCarthy, who used to coach at Weber State. I was at his camp one summer. And he said to me, hey, you know, I happened to see a kid last year. We played in a tournament. He said, yeah, keep an eye on him. His name is Stockton, and he went to Gonzaga. So I put it up here on my rear end, and I said, all right, you know, I keep the thing. And then Liddell Anderson, you know, the great coach, and Liddell Anderson was at the Olympic trials, and John was there, and he said to me, you know, there was a guard that should have made the team. He should have made the Olympic team. I said, who is that? He says, a kid named John Stockton from Gonzaga. So I said, no. So all of a sudden, this name is popping up. Then they had the college all-star game. At that time, they had it before the Final Four. And Jack Gardner said to me, hey, you know who the best player there was? He says, a kid named John Stockton. So I had it from good people. McCarthy was a very good coach. Liddell was a very good coach. And, of course, you know, the great Jack Gardner. So anyway, we kept an eye on him. And then we saw him in Chicago, the tryout camp, and I liked what I saw. But it was funny, we happened to get on the elevator together, and I was kind of...
You and John?
Yeah. And going up after breakfast, and I'm kind of edging myself. I want to see how big he is, you know. And he goes, hello, Coach Layden. You know? And he was so polite and everything. He was so nice. Then I said, this is a kid that went to a Catholic high school and college, probably, you know. He just was, he was so nice and everything. And he played very well. And he played very well with a lot of quick, tough kids that could have outshined him, and he wouldn't give an inch. His toughness, his mental toughness, was probably his greatest asset, besides his God-given agility and physical talents. He was a smart guy. And so anyway, when the draft came, you know, we had a pretty good point guard in Ricky Green, and so anyway, we started to hear that Portland was very interested in him. So, and we were picking ahead of them, and I said, well, maybe if we pick them, if we pick him, we can make a deal with Portland later on. We don't know, and we don't know if this is true or not. Well, as it turned out, it was true. They were very interested, and even they called ahead of time asking if we would pick him for them. And I said, you know what? If he's that good, because they're very good, they had a very good team, maybe we should take a look at him. And there was, you know, a lot of people said, oh, they booed when we picked Stockton. They didn't boo. There was sort of a murmur. People went, who?
Who is that?
Yeah. I mean, they were a little bit taken back by it, but of course we never looked back, because he was one of those very, very special players. And it wasn't long after. He would have been a great player. There's no doubt about it. He would have gone to the Hall of Fame. He was, and you know, Jerry Sloan had a lot to do with his development of his game. I can't take credit for that. He really worked with him and did a lot of things. And John was a good student and of the game and what have you. But all of a sudden came the mailman. And then, you know, that combination. I don't know if either of them would have been quite as great, you know. We forget that I think Malone's the third leading high scorer in the history of the league. You know? So I mean, but
well, somebody was passing the ball to him.
Somebody was passing the ball to him, and he was finishing. And they both had a great work ethic. You know, now we talk about you know, load control and you know, I'm not going to argue about that, whether players should be rested or the season's too long or what have you. But I do know this: Malone and Stockton never wanted a day off. They wanted to play basketball. They wanted to practice. They love playing, practicing, playing, and that's why I think it had a lot to do with their constant improvement. They didn't get to the pros, take the check, and say, "This is it. This is as good as I'm going to get." They got to the peak of their games, and they were a pleasure to work with.
Larry Miller told me a story about Karl, about the kind of shape he was in. He said that he called over to the house, and Kay answered the phone, and he said, "Kay, this is Larry. Is Karl there?" And she said, "Yeah, he's downstairs just finishing his workout. Let me send you down." "Oh, no, I don't have to bother." "No, he's almost done." So he transfers down to the exercise room, and Karl answers the phone. "Hello." Regular voice. "Hello. Hi, Karl, this is Larry. How you doing?" He said, "Fine." He says, "What are you doing right now?" "I'm just finishing the stair stepper." "How long you been on the stair stepper, Karl?" "Oh, about 45, 50 minutes. And he was not out of breath. He was not out of breath.
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, I can call back later." "No, I'm done. I'm done." And got off and talked to him. Completely normal, as if he had not, as if he would, as just sitting there.
Yeah.
Tell me about Karl Malone and the kind of shape he was in.
Well, you know what, let me tell you about him. He, first of all, he loved to work out. I mean, he was addicted to lifting and to taking good shape of his body. It was only a few years before that where coaches were very much against weightlifting because they thought it affected their shooting, it affected
fine motor skills,
your motor skills and all that. But anyway, one of the things is we found out that it built up all their immune systems and everything, that they wouldn't get sick. The weightlifting and the training under proper conditions, like we provided for them, did them a world of good. In that weight room, if a player tried to cheat and leave early, Malone would go, "Hey, get back here, sit down. You know, we're not finished yet. You know." But I'll never forget
he became a deputy sheriff after he was done in the NBA.
He was a tough guy. Let me tell you what he did. We played an exhibition game in New Mexico, an exhibition game. I think we were playing the Spurs, and in the first quarter, he got his middle finger, bent back against. I mean, it was a mean-looking thing. It was just one of those things that no matter how big or how strong, it can happen. All right, the finger was bent back to where the top of it was against his wrist. So they took him back, and the doctor said, "Oh, we got to fly him back, and this looks like it's going to require surgery." And while everybody was talking about what was going on, we heard, "Ah!" He straightened the finger out, and he said to Sparky, our trainer, "Tape him up." So I said, "Karl, you can't play. We're not going to put you back in again." He says, "Coach, you know how many people paid and traveled and came here to see me play tonight?"
Yeah.
He said, "This is an exhibition game." I said, "The game doesn't mean anything." He says, "How many people paid to come and see me play tonight? They'll never get a chance to see me again. I'm playing in the second half."
Wow.
I mean, and
he went back out there.
Yes, he did, and he played well. And I don't think he ever missed a game due to that injury. You know, it just, let's go on.
Tough as nails.
Tough as nails. Yeah. You like a guy like that to have your back.
Yeah, you sure do.
Yeah, and generous, by the way. I should mention that one year, after we lost the famous thing where Michael Jordan pushed off and made the famous shot,
Yeah.
Dirty Michael. But anyway, he called me and said, "Come on over to see my house." So we went over and we visited with him, my wife Barbara and I, and we saw it. And at the end, we were walking out. He had this wonderful home that he built here in Salt Lake City. And he had a couple of friends over, and we had lunch and whatever. So we're leaving, and he hands me a card. And I opened the card up, and I didn't realize the next day was Father's Day. But in this letter, he said, "Everything you see here today, Coach, I owe to you. Thank you. Thank you, my father."
Oh.
And so Barbara starts to cry. Kay, his wife, starts to cry. In fact, I cried a little bit.
Got a little misty.
So anyway, I took it and I folded it up and I put it in my pocket. And then we opened the doors, to the thing. And there's a car outside with a big bow on it.
He bought you a car.
He gave me a car.
Oh, my word.
So, just something like that. And I'll tell you what, I never stepped back, ever. I was tougher on him probably than anybody, I used to sit next to him when he was a rookie on the plane to make sure he behaved himself and that he and thing like that. Just guided him through that first year. I promised his mother I'd do that. She was a wonderful lady, and we had a wonderful relationship there too, in making sure Karl kept himself ready to play all the time. And of course, the rest is history. Yeah. You know, if you got to lay who happened, you know, everybody used to talk about, you know, Larry Miller used to get mad at this and say, you know, Karl Malone, he says, hey, John Stockton, everything. I says, hey, calm down. He made us all rich.
That has to be a tightrope act. Tell me, let's talk about coaching, being the head coach.
Yes.
You're on the court with a whole bunch of extremely talented athletes. How do you walk that tightrope wherein you motivate them, but don't get in their way?
Well, first of all, I was well trained for it. I had played for very good coaches. I was fortunate. I came from a single-parent home. My mother died when I was born in my childbirth. And so my father brought us up. And my father loved sports. He pushed sports on us. He thought it was a great thing to look after us and stuff. I had a wonderful high school coach, Mr. Drucker. He just did so much for me. And he said, someday, if you work hard, you might get a scholarship to college. Then when I got to college, I had a wonderful coach, and by the name of John Taps Gallagher, who was a legend back east and was a great coach at Niagara. And both those men, they went beyond coaching. The game of basketball is relatively simple. You know, they asked Johnny Wooden to write a book about it, and they were surprised that the book wasn't bigger and fatter, you know, for the thing. But the handling of people, the using basketball as a method to help students to become better students, all right, players to become better students, to become more orientated to do other things in their lives, go on to college, be professional people, or what have you. And both of those coaches had an influence on me becoming a coach. I admired them so much, and I thought that they did such a great job. And that is what a coach has to do. I don't think just X's and O's. The game, like I say, the game is too simple for that, all right? And if you can get caught over coaching, doing too many X's and O's and driving the players nuts, let them play. But the thing is that you use this as a mechanism to make them better, and they appreciate it. You know, we did some things. We had a wives club. We had chapel services. We had, you know, go back to school. We give bonuses if you finish college. You know, all sorts of things. Try to find if the wives of the players wanted to finish college. You know, of course, we had resources here in town. We could get up to university, and they'd help us out, work any way they could. This community was very cooperative that way. But after a while, the players realized, hey, you know what? This guy is trying to help me. And they'll play harder for you. If the players think that you're interested in them beyond just wins and losses, all right, then they are going to give more to you, and they are going to be better than maybe they normally would be. They're going to excel. And that's, I think, part of the success. Now, how about me? 10 years of high school coaching, 10 years of college coaching, all right, assistant in the pros. You know, I had a great background. I had great coaches behind me. And I also never worried about losing. I always thought if I lost, I'd get a better job. I'd get your job. I mean, I'd be in
I'm sure you would.
I'd be in broadcasting or something like that. I did some of that afterwards. I think I could have been a salesman. And I was a school teacher for a long time, which was a wonderful profession. And by the way, underpaid, and they always will be, and that's too bad. But you know what? I would never worried that if I lost my job, what am I going to do now? There was a lot of things that I probably maybe could have done even better. But I always thought that I was gifted to have the vocation of being a coach. It was a way of reaching the players that I couldn't do in the classroom. I mean, if I could have taken kids in the math class and gave them laps if they made a mistake, or kept them for 4 hours, or practice or classes 6 days a week, we would have had better mathematicians. There's no doubt about that. But I had that. I was able to do that in basketball, and to do it with the players in mind, and I think most of the players appreciated that and gave me a little bit more than they normally would have had to do, and I think it got us as a family. We were together. We worked together. We sacrificed together, and we won together, and we lost together sometimes.
What has big money done to professional sports?
Well, you know what? Big money. It's such a complicated thing. It's hard to think about. But let's put it this way: when a few years ago we had a recession in this country, we bailed the banks out. We bailed the big market companies out. The airlines, and we've always subsidized the railroads and airlines and stuff. We've always done these things like that. The year of the recession, the NBA teams raised their prices. Attendance was up. It's funny, the American people, if they are down a little bit in terms of their finances, they won't give up their sports. They won't give up their gambling. They won't give up their drinking. They won't give up they won't give up their vacations. They go about business as it is. And it was funny. So but there has to be concerns. The concerns I have are not that the players are making too much money. I don't know you, anybody else in this building would say, "Oh, you're paying me too much." No. Whose fault is it? All right. First of all, the fans. The fans are partners. It's the fans, the players, the coaches, and the administration and the owners. Okay. And so if the fans keep coming and paying the money, then the prices are going to keep going up. They're never going to start to cut them back. So what can happen? How much money can players make? They're talking now $40-50 million. You know, this baseball trade they made the other day with bets and what have you. You know, we want to win. The guys who own teams want to win, so they're gonna invest more money. They're gonna pass it on to this fan, and the fan is gonna pay for it in his $11 beer, or he's gonna pay for it in his $500 seat, or his that. Last year, Barbara and I went to see a game in the playoffs. We went to Toronto, and we saw the playoffs between the Rapids and the Warriors. And so what happened? Our seats, we didn't pay for them. No, all right, we didn't pay for them. It was something like $1,780 each for a playoff game. You know. Oh. And so now. What's wrong with that? Well, it keeps our kids out. You know, the children aren't going to see as many. When I was a kid, we'd go to Ebbets Field. We could get in. The regular seat was $1.10. I'm not going to try and compare monies because it was different those days. But there was always a place for kids. You get in for a quarter or 50 cents or something. I'm not suggesting kids should go in free, but I'm suggesting that there always should be a way for the youngsters to be able to come. There should always be a way for the middle class, for the lower people, for the young couples who are just starting out, all right, to be able to come to our games. And yes, I'm concerned about it. And I, how many suits can you own? How many steaks can you eat? How many cars can you own? How much money? Now what happens to the players? This quarterback wants more money because the other guy got it. I want more than him. As if that would make you better, I had a player once who said to me, I'm one of the best players in the league, and I think I should make more money. I said, I would give it to you if you won more games for us. I said, we're in this together, baby. You know what I mean? Magic Johnson deserves it because his team is winning. Right. And so Michael Jordan. So, yeah, the financial part of sports, it has to be a major concern. One of the things we get away with is television. They're paying a big portion of that money. But television is getting their money from advertisers who are charging more. Budweiser in the Super Bowl, spends all that money on that advertising and everything else. They're passing it on to they're not giving beer away. They're giving advice. Yeah. But that's about it. Yeah. There certainly should be concern about it. But the big thing is we have to always remember we have to take care of the players. They have a career that's very short, and we don't want, guys like Joe Louis who, their careers were over. They were suffering, mental damage and stuff, and they didn't have health care. They didn't have things like that. Yeah. But we have to do that even for our citizens. We have to always take care. We always have to take care of the lesser people. Don't worry about the others. They'll take care of themselves.
When you stopped being the head coach, I think you were 11 games into the 88-89 season, and you decided it was time to stop being the head coach.
Yes.
You became the president and general manager, and then after that, you stopped doing that after a while. What happened? Why did you stop coaching? Why did you stop the
It was enough. First of all, I wanted to leave on my terms. We had a good team. We ended up that year winning the conference, and I think we would have done it if I had stayed there. Maybe I would have screwed it up. I don't know. But I knew Jerry Sloan, and my son Scott was his assistant at the time. I knew they would take it to another level, and they did. I think the players needed fresh blood. I think I'd been yelling at them long enough and giving them advice. But also, I needed a life. Let me give you an example of sometimes the pressures that come upon people, not just coaches, but professional people. I'm sure it's whether you're politicians or you're professional, you're doctors or whatever it is, teachers. My son Scott, for instance, was a wonderful player. He was a very good high school player. He got a scholarship to college, all right, and he got which was great, and then he went on to be a coach and what have you. Now he was a good high school player, a very good college player, all right, and I only saw 2 games.
Because you were coaching all that time.
I was with other people's kids, and not with him. And this isn't a dress rehearsal. You can't.
This is real life.
This is real life. Once it's gone, that's it. So and I wouldn't recommend that to anybody, because I think that time. And when I really realized it, is when I go to watch my grandchildren play. You know what I mean? I just get such joy out of sitting back and watching them play, win or lose, or if they muff one or they whatever they do, they hit a homer. I just enjoy watching them perform. It could be on the stage, it could be, and they do many different things. I have a lot of girls too, and they all are good at something. But I enjoy that. And I think that that's a part of my life that I missed, and I would do differently. If I had to do over again, I would have made time to do that.
Kind of hard to do though as an NBA
it is.
coach.
It's very, and you know what? It's selfishness though. I could have had could have had a different job. Yeah, I mean you're driven, especially in sports. You're taught to win, to move ahead. You always want the next job, and I loved coaching the Jazz because we were starting from the bottom, and here it is. Hey world, here we come. And it took for a while to people. I remember being on a plane. A guy says to me, "Hey, I saw your ring. What's that for?" I said, "It's the All-Star game or something like that." "Oh yeah, what do you do?" "I'm a coach." "Oh yeah, who do you coach?" "Utah Jazz." He says, "Who do you play?" So I says, "Who do we play?" He goes, "Oh, I never heard of the Jazz." I said, "Well, we play. You ever hear of the Lakers?" "Yeah."
The Celtics?
Yeah.
Ever hear of them?
Yeah, and we beat them.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, it was a great challenge. And very rewarding. It was a wonderful part of my life, and I think I gave up maybe my sharing with the children, but they all became successful. They all did things. They met the giants, not only in just in sports, but in other things too.
Yeah.
It's amazing at how people want to meet you. They want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So. They want to talk about sports. When I'm with a baseball player, I want to talk, or a baseball coach, Terry Francona. I want to talk baseball. He wants to talk basketball. Yeah, but it's a lot of fun.
You were born and raised in Brooklyn.
I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I was raised by the neighborhood.
Right, and then you're retired in Utah. Why did you not go back to Brooklyn? What keeps you in Utah?
It wasn't. You know what about my days in Brooklyn? You know what I miss about the East Coast is the beaches. I loved going to the beach, going to the water, even if it wasn't a swim, just to walk on the boardwalks what have you. That was a part of my life. I guess you could do that on the West Coast also. But why am I here? First of all, this is where my grandchildren are. This is where my children were brought up. This is where my grandchildren, Scott's children live in New York, but my other two children, I have the children here. And you know what? People treat us so well here. We came here and they made us feel at home. They accepted us when we weren't always successful. It wasn't always, you know, hey, I want to, oh, you know, here's Coach Layden, he's something special. They were with us all the time. And so we've been here a long time. My wife graduated from the university and worked in counseling and drug and alcohol abuse. And my son Michael went to school here. He played baseball at the U. And my daughter went to Dixie. And so, you know, I mean, this is our home. Scott, of course, he was older, a little older, and he went to school back east. But I think he married a lady from here, and I suspect someday him and his children and his wife will come back here again. Mm-hmm. This is a good place to live, and people have been very good to us, and you know, and I really believe this, that God sent me here. He sent me here for balance. I'm the only Irish Catholic Democrat that I know of. And when I have a meeting of my partners, we meet in a phone booth. You know, I mean it's a great challenge. It really is. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You have been so funny as a head coach, and I don't know if you meant to be funny or whether it was just your personality coming out. I'm thinking of Morgana the Kissing Bandit.
Yeah.
I remember when she came and kissed you on the cheek and you wound up on the floor.
That was a special moment in my life.
We could tell. We could tell. But then.
And I heard for years.
Oh, did you really?
She sends me Christmas cards every year.
You mean an awful lot to her.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about, and I advise this to anybody, whether you're in the preaching business, you're a minister of some sort, and you have to deal with your flock, or you're the coach, or you're a teacher, or whatever it might be, you're a parent. There should be a sense of humor in the family. It's sad when I see people who never laugh. You know, and my heart breaks when I see the immigrants and the kids trying to get into this country, people trying to get into this country, and us keeping them out, by the way. But I feel, gee, I always got room at my table for people. But you know what? If you're going to come with the Laydens, you better get ready to laugh, because we have fun. I see humor in a lot of things that other people don't always see. You know, for instance, I'll give you an example. We played a 7-game series with the Lakers. I thought that might have been the greatest basketball team ever. They had Worthy, they had, Jabbar, and they had Magic, and everything. 7 games. Pat Riley, a wonderful coach.
Yeah.
Well, when we sat down for the press conference after the thing, we lost the 7th game there in California and in Los Angeles. And I said, boy, that was fun, wasn't it? And Pat says, it sure was, Coach. Let's do it again. You know, he realized that what I said was true. We enjoyed it. It was fun. It was the conferences afterwards and the winning and everything else. And that's how I think you should approach sports.
You made fun of him out there on the court.
Yes.
Just combing your hair.
He still does it when I see him. He goes like this to me. You know? But you know, I think you have to see humor in things. Yeah. If you take it too serious, and it's only basketball, you know, then it shouldn't be that much fun. I kind of getting a kick out of Andy Reid. You know, I like how he knows how to win. Yeah. You know, it's you know, I remember you know, the idea of losing is that we should hang our heads and it builds character, and all that. Yeah. No, there's no reason to do that. As long as you teach your players and you figure, I did everything I could.
Right.
Now, if I did anything wrong in the meantime, I'm not. You know, Vince Lombardi said, if we're not in shape, it makes cowards of us all. You know, if you're not in shape, if you're not ready, if you don't do your homework, you don't study the scouting reports, you don't watch films, you don't work at your game. Now you're making all this money. You owe it to the fans, you owe it to your family, you owe it to everybody to give it the best effort you possibly can. If you can walk out off the court knowing you left everything you have out there. That's all you can ask for. You know what I mean?
And you ought to have fun doing it,
And
don't
you should
think?
have fun, sure, or else do something else for a living.
It's called a game for a reason.
Yeah. There's too much sadness around us all the time that we should do. And I can understand people, they're disappointed. But you bounce back. You'll be all right.
Do you think we take sports too seriously in this country?
Yes, I think wherever there's great affluence, you're going to have that happen. And I think wherever people are successful, and not only do we have it, but we want success. Let's say I'm a part of a university, all right, and I pay a lot of money to be into XX club and to get special seats and my donations to the university and everything else. Well, I want to win. All right, now we don't win. Who can I blame? All right, now my finger's on the athletic director or the coach or what have you. And that's a shame. That shouldn't be that way. I would like to see if we hire coaches. Coaches probably wouldn't want it this way, but I think they should get tenure, just like other professors in the university, and they should be treated accordingly. But when you pay them a lot of money, we want results.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't give a professor, millions of dollars and say cure cancer. You got 4 years to do it. So I think that, and that's how I make up as individuals too. As I said before, I never was afraid of losing or maybe having to do something else for a living. People ask me, do I go to the games? I go to games occasionally. I watch them on TV. I'm interested when I hear there's a new player in the league. The guy on the Bucks, the Greek there, he's great. I went out of my way to make sure I saw a couple of games that he played in. Or LeBron James comes down the rope. I wanted to see him up close and in person. But most of the time I can float with it. I like to see colleges. I like to see young players coming along, young coaches developing. Yeah. I told my wife the other day, I told Barbara, I miss clinics. I miss meeting other coaches and spending time with them and what have you. I think that was a fun part of my life, I had a lot of fun with Jack Gardner, with Majerus, Rick, of course. Liddell Anderson was a good friend of mine, and he used to come to and work with our team in our training camps and stuff. And but relationships with other coaches and relationships that last after your players. We had a thing with the Jazz, and we still do it. All right, and I don't see a lot of players now, but I see Karl, once a year or something. I see Mark Eaton a little more often. I see Thurl Bailey because they live here locally.
Yeah.
All right. John comes to towns. John called the other day. Hey, Coach, how are you doing? How you feeling? Everything. Malone called me on Christmas morning, 7:30. Hey, Coach, you out of bed yet? Come on, go down and open your presents. Yeah. He's kidding me, something like that. But when we meet, we shake hands and we hug.
Yeah.
And our motto is, what can I do for you today? What can I do for you today? How can I help you outside of what is basketball,
As we wind up this interview, look back on your NBA basketball career, and not just the NBA, but in college as well. Look back for me, and if you could characterize or summarize what you learned and what you became because of basketball.
Well, first of all, if it hadn't been for basketball, maybe I could have played minor league baseball. I don't know. I didn't get any baseball scholarships offers coming out of high school, but I did get some basketball offers. So I went to college on basketball. The college not only gave me an education, and I went to a small school, Niagara University, but I got a Harvard education. I ripped it out of them. You know what I mean? It was there. Doesn't matter where you go to school. It's what you put in here. We got, just look at our government and some of our Ivy League graduates. They have values and stuff,
Yeah.
So anyway, the thing is, I got a good education. This is something that I'd add to it. It gave me a chance to be in the ROTC, which gave me a chance to be an officer in the Army, which gave me a chance to test what I had learned. That's why I'm very much in favor of universal military training. I think we're missing out. I think the kids here from the LDS, when they go on their missions, they gain an awful lot that other kids don't ever have a chance. It's a chance for them to mature. And that's what happened to me. When I went in the service, they threw responsibility at me. You know, when I got out, I had 750 men and women's lives in my hands. All right? And it was trucks and rifles and food and ammunition and maps and all sorts of things. And they gave a guy 24 years old all this responsibility. Well, when I left the service, I felt I can do anything. I felt my confidence in myself and my abilities at that time were just so uplifted. So basketball got me into school, kept me honest in high school, get good grades, get into college, get a scholarship in college, get in the ROTC, get in the service, and build myself up. And like I said, when it came time, I mean, I paid my dues. I was a school teacher 10 years. If I had stayed teaching school and coaching in school, that would have been wonderful. That would have been wonderful. I see people in our community. I think of the Carlissimos, you know, with Juan Diego and what have you. I mean, they're men who are dedicated to helping youngsters through sports and through getting educations and whatever. They're gifted, and it comes back to them twofold. But I thought that I had these gifts that came to me and made me feel like I can do anything I want. And I would have been fine if I went back to teaching school, high school. I would have been fine. If I had gone back to coaching in the high school level, there's nothing wrong with that, or college or what have you. I remember one of the greatest compliments I ever had in my life was Jerry Sloan, who was a great player, he was a great coach, Hall of Fame, all right, in both. You know, but a great guy. And he said, you know what, I could have spent the rest of my life being Frank Layden's assistant. And that, I mean, I can't be paid a better compliment than that. He said, yeah, I would have been fine with that. And that's how I felt also, that there was no dire need for me to win World's Championships or anything else. We took up some big challenges. We answered them, and all I can say is when we walked away, we did the best we could. I walked away, to get back to what you asked me earlier, I walked away because it wasn't only the right thing for me, but it was also the right thing for my wife, Barbara, who paid dearly for me to have my life. And everywhere we went, hey, Frank Layden, the coach, you know, and Barbara was something special, and she made that possible and did a wonderful job of keeping our family and our finances and so many other things together that I'd never been able to do alone. So, you know, it was time. The team was ready. They had respect for Jerry and Scotty, and I knew they would take them to another level, and it was time for me to step back and enjoy life a little bit with them, with my family, see my grandkids play, and go on from there. You got to know when to quit too, you know, not just live forever. But
real quickly, before we finish, real quickly, how soon do you think the Jazz will win a championship?
It could be this year. They have a lot of talent, all right? Do they have all the parts? Not quite. They're close. They have done a very, very good job of putting a wonderful team together, and they've done some good drafting. They've done some great trading. And so, but last year at this time, if you said to me that the Toronto Raptors would win the World's Championship, I would have said, nah, no way. But so maybe they get into the playoffs, they get hot, they've got the players, maybe they're healthy, all right, and I think they have enough to be able to certainly compete with anybody, and that's what it takes. It takes the home court advantage. That helps, you know, so many factors. But I think they're in the hunt. I think they're up there. I don't think they get the credit that they deserve from the national press, but that's natural and sometimes good. I like to sneak up on people. I like to surprise people rather than disappoint them. But I think they're good. I think this to the Jazz fans, that Mrs. Miller, the Miller family, your coaching staff, and the players with the Jazz are giving you everything they can to bring a championship here. and it'll only be a matter of time. And it may come sooner than you expect, and it may surprise you. But whatever happens, stick with them. Have fun, all right? Because as soon as you win the championship, you're going to want another one. You're going to want another one. I grew up in Brooklyn, and what happened? We won the championship, and the following year we were in Los Angeles, you know, 1957. Yeah, so, yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy it for what it is. Your team gives you everything they got, and I think that's all you can ask for. We're blessed here to have the colleges that we have, the caliber of sports we have in this area, and professional basketball, high-level baseball, AAA baseball. I mean, we're very fortunate. We are.
Frank Layden, former head coach of the Utah Jazz. Thank you so much for being part of 3 Questions.
Well, Bob, thank you very much for having me. Yes. Now, I know, do I get a Boulevard or something?
You get a Boulevard watch. Is that what you get? Thanks so much, Coach.
Okay.